David, what did you bring?
I brought a song from James Taylor in the 1970s, My Decade. Oh, you've got a friend. Nobody under 50 is going to be able to relate to this, but when you're down and troubled and you need a helping hand and nothing is going right. Close your eyes and think of me, and soon I will be there to brighten up even your darkest nights. Many apologies to James Taylor. I'm sorry, James.
Oh,
I made no money off of this song.
I'm like, I don't own the rights to that. I'm like, are you allowed to sing it? I may have to edit it.
Well, I think you can sing it poorly. And if you don't get money and you sing it badly, you can sing it.
Oh, all right. Hold that thought. We're going to come back to you on this one because that was quite the opening. Deepa, what did you bring?
Not a song and not as fabulously singing like David, but I brought this. This is like a thing that we did at the Berkeley Executive Coaching Institute. And I'll share more when you're ready for this, Valerie.
Ooh. As you guys can already see, I have a pair of very creative and innovative guests today. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in once again to the podcast, Not Quite Strangers. My name is Valerie Hope. I am your host, and I bring two people together who don't know each other. And actually, in this case, they just met 20 minutes ago. And we are here to build connection, to inspire curiosity, and sometimes even challenge the status quo. You can already see David's brought his A game. So status quo has been challenged officially.
It is so sad. It is so sad that that's my A game, but.
No, not sad at all. Beautiful. It's beautiful. So I need to let people know how I didn't find these random people here. So David and I have known each other for about 2.5, 3 years. He and I belong to the same Toastmasters bilingual club here in Dallas, Texas. And man, David, you are one of those people who bring so much energy and so much charm to every space you fill. And you're also a therapist who specializes in conflict. And I was like, but one of the most cheerful ones at that. So when I thought about, I want David to be on my podcast. Who can I introduce David to? And I thought, ta-da, Deepa, Pulipati here. Deepa. And she already kind of teed it off by saying she brought this envelope from Berkeley. She and I went to the Berkeley Executive Coaching Institute. We've met maybe 1.5 years ago. And 2 years? So it's been 2 years. And Deepa actually was on the Time to Come Alive podcast. So she's a veteran of the podcasting game.
Mm-hmm. But killing it on that podcast.
She killed it. But David, guess what? Deepa also specializes in conflict resolution.
What? Oh my gosh.
And you guys are like the most upbeat, positive, happy-go-lucky, intuitive, empathetic, fun-loving people that I know who are dealing with people under the most dire, stressful, unpleasant circumstances. And I was like, okay, there's got to be something in the magic here. So welcome to the podcast, guys.
I'm excited. I was excited before this. I'm even more excited now. Wow.
Why are you so excited?
Berkeley? Are you kidding me? Berkeley? I mean, that's high cotton. You know?
It is. We're kind of a big deal. So.
I'm gonna button my collar here.
Please do.
We're unbuttoned at Berkeley, David. Come on, we're unbuttoned at Berkeley.
That's true. You should wear a backwards cap.
It's like they're hippies. I forgot they're hippies.
And now, Valerie, I got the name for both David and me. We're going to be called the Double Ds.
It's not that kind of show. It's just family friendly. So
it's a family friendly name.
Yeah.
Okay? I didn't mean anything by it.
How about if you're like, how about David? It could be like David or Deepa.
We should have our own name, I think.
You can
one
work
of
on
those like celebrity names, you know, when they.
That's what I was saying. You should be like David or Dappy or something. Dappa. There you go. Something. But look,
we'll come back to it.
I do want to say the two of you have completely elevated this evening because both of you are, I think we should cheers. Let's cheers to that. Look at that.
Thank you.
Ching. All right. We got
I was water, by the way, just FYI.
Yeah, sure, it's water. Yeah, right. Deepa, you did not
Totally.
get to where you are today.
My leaning tower piece of water. Like, come
yeah,
on.
I mean, you're the one that wanted to call you guys Double D. So is it really water?
Wait a minute. I thought you were not going to bring it up because it's
Is
like
it?
a family show.
That is true. I'm going to have to bleep it out. Well, first of all, I'm just so grateful that you guys, again, everyone can now hear and see why I thought the two of you guys would be just phenomenal people to bring together, because you guys started bouncing off the walls the moment the cameras went on. So I'm curious, David, you already said you were excited, but what is it that had you say yes to meeting a complete stranger that you knew nothing about live in public?
Because of you, and because I'm so impressed with you. Seriously, I'm not lying. You are one of the most talented, gifted, funny, empathic people that I know. You helped save our club, Fiesta Bilingual, that was sputtering, and now it's really doing well. And so if Valerie Hope's for it, I'm in it.
Man, I couldn't get a better endorsement. Thank you, David.
Just let you know, I'm not getting paid, okay? This is totally free. So I'm not getting paid, right?
No, I'm sorry. I should have said that up front.
No, but that's true. That's why I did it. I like you so much, and I admire you so much. If you're going to be involved, it's going to be quality. So and it's going to be fun. So and it has been.
Look at that. 10 minutes in.
I just, have to agree with David on this. I don't know if I'll agree with him in the show overall, but no, I'm just kidding.
Right?
But
you may not.
But seriously, I think one of the big things when you and I spoke about this like a couple of months ago, I just told you this. I'm like, if you're doing this, I'm in it, because there's such a huge trust for me that you will connect whoever it is that you think that we both will, connect. We'll be absolutely fine because you have that talent. And I trust your expertise, your knowledge, and your empathy, and your friendliness, and your kindness, and all of that. And I figured either way, we're just going to have fun, which we already are.
You already are. Yes. And it's funny. Maybe I need some therapy. I need maybe the two of you to work with me, because that's the one thing I haven't been able to quite unpack. Like, what is it that I should be getting paid for this? Like, really, you guys should probably pay me.
That's not too far. No, I'm just kidding.
No, too much.
Too much.
Okay, I'll ask about 30 minutes in. So, but a big part of me in this experience of the podcast is I do want people to see that two individuals from seemingly different backgrounds, different parts of the world or parts of the country, although you all share a profession, right? You have some similarities that I thought could have interesting conversation with one another. So I'm curious, after now knowing that each of you are working in the same field, what questions come up for you? Because I'm sure that there's like some yes, David, go.
Deepa, I would like to know what got you interested in the field or the subject of conflict resolution, and exactly what do you do in that field?
Great question, David. So I fell into it by chance. So many years ago, I look very young, I know, but what can I say? Many years ago.
David, you should show your picture. Maybe you should hold it up the whole time.
I was young. I used to be young.
Black and white young.
Black and white before color faded. So Deepa,
so just coming back, right. Just coming back to your question. So I came to this country in 98 and super interested in psychology, and decided to sort of explore and got into master's in marriage and family therapy back in the day. And I was looking for an internship. I literally did not know anybody. My entire cohort knew people. They were already getting their internship. So a judge came on the weekend to teach us a class at drug ed drug addiction class. And I looked at her, I said, can I get some like, work in the court, and I can just do voluntary work. I don't even want to get paid. I just want to get some experience. She's like, come on over. And then I met her coordinator, and I was there for 6 months. And I asked the coordinator, I'm like, I need to get an internship. Like, I don't know where to go. She said, oh, there's this place next door called Family Court Services. You should totally check them out. I'm like, what do they do? Conflict resolution. I'm like, doing what? Like, they
Resolving
actually
conflict.
Right. Well, like, what kind of conflict, right? So parents divorcing, I'm like, what, with children? Yeah. So applied, I got in, and I got in by chance. And it was one of the best things that happened to me ever in my life. The two people who took me on, Billy and Alicia, took a 23-year-old, 22-year-old with zero experience, because they felt like they saw something, and they put their entire trust in it. And they said, Deepa, we know you got this. And I came into the court, and I just loved it. I loved resolving people's disputes, or at least
That's
trying to.
hardcore. That is hardcore conflict. Family court services. That's impressive.
That's what I love doing. That's what I've been doing for the last 15 years.
And so what's the Berkeley connection, and what do you do there?
So Berkeley, I sort of pivoted. I decided I needed to do something else with my life, because any child custody dispute that was coming in front of me seemed too easy. It wasn't very challenging.
What?
Oh. I'm like, oh, parental conflict again.
Because I love my parents, by the way. They're so amazing. Most of my parents, 9 out of 10, they're such well-intentioned parents. They want to work it out. I'm like, I feel like I wasn't using my brain cells. And then I said, where do I take my skill set and apply it to something else? And coaching seemed to be the most easiest transition, because we use so much of our skill set in there. And then that was the time I moved to Southern California. I had to quit my fabulous job at Family Court in San Francisco. And I said, this is the right time to do it. And that's how I got into it.
Look at that. So now you know, David. What's your reaction? What was, you had all kinds of stuff.
We must have different parents. The parents that I dealt with, and they do not want to work their conflicts out. They hate each other's guts.
Oh.
And it's like, woo, Nelly. So
wait a minute. Do you do child custody disputes too?
I have done. I'm a clinical psychologist and a consulting psychologist, and so I've been involved in the court system. Kind of like, it's about probably a fifth of my practice now.
Okay.
I've been trained. I was a member of the American Psychology and Law Society for a while. But boy, it is just so messy, and the people that are involved, they don't really want to change. They want you to clean up the poop, and they want you to fix the other person.
Correct.
We can't say poop here.
Oh, I'm sorry. What I mean,
I'm kidding.
No, I didn't say that. They want you to fix the other person. They want you to clean up the situation and in their favor. But very few people in the court system that I've seen are really interested in change, and are really interested in understanding themselves and what they've brought to the problem. So it's not very, for me, it's not very life-giving. It's incredibly important. The courts absolutely need all the mental health professionals they can get to help them out. And those people have a very special skill set. But those people that do that primarily for their bread and butter, they've got to have a certain kind of temperament that I just don't have.
But don't you call yourself, I recall you using this in one of your speeches, where you were like Dr. Conflict or Super Conflict Man or some, you called yourself something, touting your.
Wait, what did you call yourself?
At one time, I had a website called drconflict.com, and then I lost it because I forgot, oh, you have to pay for it. And I didn't realize that. So I'm Dr. Conflict in my mind. Who's
Dr. Conflict now? We should invite him next time.
I don't know. That's right. I probably
or her.
$5,000 for the domain name. I enjoy helping. The reason why I'm doing it is I like to help prevent the pain from happening in the first place. And when I went to Vanderbilt as an undergraduate and North Texas State University for my master's and doctorate. And before I left, I did a really comprehensive literature search of the premarital counseling research, that just to see if there was anything that worked. Was there anything that worked? And so I studied the psychology and the theology and the sociology abstracts. And after studying it for about 2 or 3 years, there were 2 programs that were actually proven to reduce the divorce rate, reduce the breakup rate. And they both involved coaching people how to address and resolve conflict, either before they walk down the aisle or after they walk down the aisle. And the most impressive research was out of the University of Denver, and it's called PrEP. They found in multiple studies, longitudinal studies replicated in Germany and America, that if you taught these couples how to address and resolve conflict before they walk down the aisle, you reduce their chances of breaking up by 50%.
That's huge.
Wow.
That is monumental for if you invest like 6 weeks into this program. That's nothing.
Yeah.
So when I saw that, number one, I signed up with my wife, Cindy, because I did not want to become a statistic. As far as I know, psychologists, sadly, their divorce rates, I don't think are any different than the public. So
Really?
I didn't want to be a statistic. And so I signed up, and Cindy and I went through that program and several others. And when I just realized that teaching these fairly basic skills at a certain time helped prevent pain, that was very enticing to me, because I really enjoy my job. I really enjoy helping people come out of their pain, but it is so much more fun helping them learn the skills to resolve the issues so they can prevent as much of the pain as possible.
Okay, so now you can't, of course, everyone, don't look for drconflict.com because that doesn't exist. So there's probably going to be another website or another email address that we'll make sure that you, David, and Deepa both share what you're up to so that people can find you. But you got to give us a little something. So what is it that people need to do, or a nugget that you can share, either of you, that helps prevent the pain? Because I'm finding, I'm a coach, but I don't deal with marital or with family issues necessarily. But the challenge is most people that I've worked with are dealing with the symptoms of something, right? Oh, now I need to get a promotion and I need to work on XYZ. Or, oh, I'm on the verge of of quitting my job because I'm so frustrated and I got to do XYZ, right? So they've hit the pain already. They're in the pain and now trying to fix it to ameliorate it. So what tip do you have, or what insight have you learned that helps prevent that? Especially when you're talking about marriage. I mean, that's such a huge 50%, to actually create the conditions so that there's a 50% level of effectiveness is astounding.
Deepa, do you want to take it first?
Sure. I come from the perspective of seeing people mostly that have gone through the separation or divorce process. So for me, it's always in hindsight. So when I looked at a whole bunch of cases, one of the fundamental things that I saw in most people was that they really did not have important conversations before having children, right? Something as basic as, how are we going to raise when we have kids? Fundamentally. The other big piece was they didn't know each other. Valerie, David, many people did not know basics of who each other was or how they wanted to be in a relationship. So for me, it almost felt like, wow, I really wish people spent some time getting to know each other, deciding that they really want to spend their lives together and then have children, and also have a conversation as like a premarital counseling conversation about how are we raising kids, what kind of fate do we want these children to be raised, and how are the grandparents going to be involved, what are our child rearing practices. I felt like these important conversations never happened with most of these people. And I always asked them, and they said, well, we were very much in love, so we really didn't feel like, we felt like we could just work everything out.
Wow. And you know what? That's something that's touted so much, right? The spark, the feeling, the passion. And it doesn't seem sexy or appealing to sit down and talk to someone about, look, I want to be like this when it comes to children, or here's what I expect when it comes to dealing with in-laws. Those conversations can sometimes be difficult. So it sounds like, Deepa, you are dealing with that after the fact, right? People are down looking, oh, I wish we had, or man, we missed an opportunity. But David, you said you want to prevent the pain. So what is it that you provide before they get to that point that makes that happen, makes that possible?
Well, some of it is the most basic communication skills. And in the group from Prep out of the University of Denver, they have something called the floor. And it is just a little piece of cardboard about this big around. And on one side, it just has rules for it's called the speaker listener technique. And at its most basic level, the speaker has the floor. And the vernacular is the person who has the floor is the one who talks. And then the listener is the one who's listening. And in the most basic ways, the speaker is concisely expressing what they want to say. They allow time for the listener to paraphrase, and then they share the floor. And the rules for the listener are, I don't rebut. I'm not arguing because this is not my role. My role right now is to listen to the other person. I'm going to paraphrase. I'm going to put into my own words what I hear them saying. And then I'm not going to argue. And it's a back and forth thing. And each person talks, I would say maybe for at most 2 or 3 minutes. And then the other person paraphrases. They check to say, is that it? Did I get it right? So what I hear you saying is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they just go back and forth like that. That is communication 101. Yeah. But you would not believe how many people don't do communication 101, especially on some of the issues that Deepa was saying.
Yeah.
This is not rocket science, but we don't use some of the most basic skills to answer some of the most basic questions because we have this Hollywood idea of what marriage is going to be like, what love is going to be like. And it's a lie. It's just, we get so many things out of order from the media and from Hollywood. And so anyway, some of the most basic skills can help people resolve so many of their issues, or they find out, I do know you, and I don't think we're going to be a good match, which is success.
Exactly.
That is successful premarital counseling.
Exactly.
If you can help people either prepare for a lifelong together, or you can help them understand, you know what, you're a nice person, I like you, but we're not a good match. That is absolutely successful premarital counseling.
Absolutely, 100% agreed. And, the technique that David was talking about, that is one of the fundamental techniques that I use in couples therapy in general. Just communication one-on-one, because most of the time as we are speaking to each other, in whether it's like low conflict or medium conflict or high conflict, we're already thinking in our brain, like, what is it that we want to respond, defending our position. So we're really not listening to the other person. So even couples that come in, have been married for 15, 20 years, I have them take a step back and do this simple technique every single day before we meet our next session. A huge effectiveness, because then now they're really listening to each other.
And listening, not to debate, not to prove the other person wrong. I'm listening to really try to understand you, to understand what your point is, why you think that, and ideally, what are the emotions in the story behind why you're saying this. And if you can get people to even have that mindset, just put on a different set of lenses. Sometimes they already have the skills, they just don't use them because they're looking at it from the point of view of a lawyer or an attorney or a debate coach, rather than, this is my life partner, I care about them, and I really want to understand them.
Wow, you guys are saying some really impactful things. Now, here's where I'm curious. I'm going to pull the curtain back here. So this is you at your best professionally. What would your spouses say about you?
Okay, that's all we have time for today.
Bye, Valerie. See you later. Okay, David,
connection.
That's right.
What did you say? No.
I have the floor now, so let me.
Oh yeah. Here comes the truth.
So Deepa, do you want to start, or you want me to start?
You're being so generous, David.
David, you start, because last time I started.
All right. Thank you. I think. Okay, just because you know these skills doesn't mean that you use these skills. Okay, so the nice thing is, it's nice to have them in your
arsenal,
repertoire.
That's right, your repertoire, your toolkit. Okay. Now, And seriously, just because you have them doesn't mean you always choose to use them.
True.
And in fact, on our bad days, we don't choose to use them
Yeah.
to our peril. And last Thursday, I totally blew it. I totally blew it. And I have the skills. I'm Dr. Conflict, for crying out loud.
Dr.
you
Conflict who didn't pay for his website. Okay, go on.
Right, who didn't pay for his
Yeah.
freaking website. Anyway,
Stuff declared.
I did not use the skills. I came in, Cindy and I had a negative exchange. It was my fault. Now, one of the things that I did do is that we came back later and we repaired it well. Because one of the things that the research shows is that couples, successful couples, they don't bat 1,000. Nobody bats 1,000.
Nope.
But one of the things that successful couples do is they make successful repair attempts.
Yeah.
And once they blow it, either in the form of a formal apology or some type of olive branch is extended and the other person receives it. So Sunday night, Cindy and I get together and I apologize because I did blow it. I did not handle it well. She graciously accepted my apology and then we went on. So it would be really interesting to see what Cindy would say.
I'm like, Cindy,
I think
here she is. Come on
I would be more than welcome. It would be interesting. But I also want to say, just because you study this stuff doesn't mean it comes easy. It's never natural when you're mad.
Yeah.
It's never natural when you're hurt or scared. You have to choose, I'm going to use the skills because very few of my natural responses are healthy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think under any kind of stress like that, you're mad, hurt, scared, right? When the amygdala hijacks, any form of rationale, logic escapes, right? There's no place. So do you say something in that moment? Like when you know that you're just too hurt or too angry or too upset, is there like a, red flag or something? Like, what do you say to indicate?
So one of the things I've been doing, and maybe this is because my husband and I were even more motivated now that we have a 14-year-old like in the same household, and we want to sort of ensure and do some good modeling of behavior. So one of the things that we do say, or at least I employ with him, is that I say, I'm like really upset, I'm really angry, I'm really frustrated. So can we just take a break and talk back after 10 minutes? Because if we continue this path, then we're going to say stuff to each other that we're out of anger or whatever, right? And we're not going to like it. And then, like David said, we end up having to repair, which is, you have to repair any part of these, fractures in a relationship, because that's the only way to connect it. But still, like just talking about how you're feeling rather than talking about the issue makes a huge difference. Huge difference.
When you call it timeout, I mean, seriously, just time. Right now, I'm too angry, I'm too hurt, I'm too upset.
Exactly.
And we just need to talk about this. Cindy did a great job. Cindy is not a trained therapist, she's a pharmacist. She did a great job saying, I'm not able to keep on talking right now. Let's talk later.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then does she have a prescription on hand? Is that how she's,
massively, she sedated me. I was really well behaved the rest of the day because I was unconscious.
Anything you say, honey, sure.
Okay.
No, I mean, seriously, disengaging is one of the best things that you can do for in that moment, right? But it's really hard to disengage because one of us is usually it's either him or me, like really involved in that moment and wanting to say our stuff because we're so in it already, right? Yeah. And I actually talk about this to my clients because I don't want, part of the experience to be, oh, she's a therapist, so she's probably doing everything right. No, I'm a human at the end of the day. I'm in my own situation, so I'm not as objective as I can be while talking to somebody else about their situation, right? So I'm in it, but the good thing is that we know in the back of our mind, or at least I do, like, oh my God, here's a slippery slope. Okay. I need to take a pause. And we have at least I feel like I've gotten better with age.
Well, it's funny. My younger brother and I were talking yesterday I bring my coaching skills to, it's like a party favor, you know, like I tend to bring them wherever I go. Sometimes they're appreciated, sometimes they're not. His 15-year-old often tells me, are you life coaching me right now, Tia Valerie? Because I don't want that. I'm like, oh yes, okay, coaching it off. But it so happened that a couple weeks ago, I went up there. They live close by, and I like cooking, and so I play this little game when I go, and I just look in the refrigerator and I pull stuff out and I see, what can I make with this, right? That's just because I like to cook and I like to be creative. And so I pulled out a bunch of random stuff and then eventually decided what I wanted to do. So I asked a 15-year-old, I'm like, hey, can you come help me, doing some things? And she's like, what? I'm not even hungry. And I was just like, I know, but I just need some help because you know where this is and you know where that is. She's like, but we don't use that for that. We don't use, and it was just like, I'm like, what just happened? And it's so, she had gotten into a little argument with her younger sister. And so she was bristling from that. She was upset and mad about it. And I asked for support at the wrong time. And she's like, why is the bacon out? We don't even use bacon for this. That's for breakfast. She takes and puts it back in the fridge. And in my mind, the whole time I'm thinking, I'm your elder. Like, why isn't your dad saying something? He heard you, you know, like, and then I'm thinking too, but I really want to cook something and I actually want to enjoy myself doing it. So I can make her do it, make her feel wrong and bad about it. And then she'll like, then I'll have to manage whatever she's feeling in the moment and like tiptoe or whatever, or I could be happy. So I was like, I don't think I want that kind of energy right now. So yeah, you don't have to help me. Thank you. And then she's like, fine. And she leaves. And then her younger sister, because she loves to like, I'll do it. So she came over.
Child.
Yeah, it was perfect. And she helped out. But then at the end of the evening, when I was heading home, the 15-year-old came back to me and she was like, I'm sorry, Tia Valerie. I just wasn't feeling good. I had an argument, with my sister. And I was like, hey, no, I got it. Thank you for letting me know. But what was fascinating in that moment, I was sharing with my brother, is like you said, Deepa, right? And the presence of mind to like not react. And, I could have forced an outcome at that moment because I'm the older, whatever adult. My brother, I'm like, hey, check your daughter. Why is she talking to me in that tone or something? But then I was like, she should actually have the freedom to feel.
The agency to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she feels however she feels and it's not personal. I knew that. And I had enough presence of mind to say, okay, yeah, go feel. This is not a good place for you to be. And then afterwards, it literally took maybe an hour or two before she was just able to come by and say, hey, I'm sorry, that was not personal. I'm like, oh, love it. So the repairing, to your point, David, the repairing the conflict is also so much more valuable, because I think it also builds a sense of trust. Like now I hope, right, she knows, not that we have these moments very often, but I hope she now knows that she can feel free to say what there is to say, that I could be okay with whatever she says, and that we can still repair. I won't hold a grudge, or I won't have to punish, or there won't be a consequence. Like I won't pull away from my love from her, that kind of thing. So I think the things that you guys are sharing are quite extraordinary. What do you teach your kids? Go ahead.
One of the things about repair also is education. And from my perspective, and education is really important, especially with my son, because I want him to sort of develop the skill set that he already has, where he's empathetic about what's going on in the situation. He's in touch with his feelings. He understands where I'm coming from. And so what we end up doing is, whenever we do repair, my husband and I, we also talk about, hey, remember that yesterday you sort of got really upset, usually coming from that space, it won't help you, it won't help us. So next time, see if you can sort of, regulate your emotions, and not only by talking, but also doing it ourselves, or at least trying to do it ourselves in the moment, right? So even with repair, there's a bit of education involved and a bit of giving perspective to him. And he just thinks about it, they just absorb. Like, it's not like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do it right away, but it's just like, right now we've planted a seed.
Yeah, that's fascinating. But now here's the thing.
Right.
Here's the thing. So Cindy is not here and your husband is not here, Deepa, but how do you apply everything that you guys have said to social conflict? right? We are living in some really divisive times right now. Anything from, is in your face, right? Anything from politics to, the healthcare system, the vaccine, the, coronavirus, racial inequity. I mean, there's so much out there. I mean, pick your poison. And how do you apply what you guys are saying to those?
David, do you
Well,
want
I
to go
think for
first?
me, so much of my education over the past year to year and a half has been about racial diversity. And I've been a part of a group called Threaded, and it's a group that's dedicated to helping the church become less segregated. Because one of Martin Luther King's most iconic statements was, the most segregated hour in America is 11 o'clock on Sunday morning. And that was certainly true back then, and it's largely true now. And so through this group, it's helped me grow personally. I mean, I needed to grow. I mean, I've been raised in a white bubble in suburbia, and I still live in a white bubble, and that's just not reality. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm going to help other people, I need to grow. I need to grow in my understanding. I need to grow in my sympathy, if not empathy. And I need to listen, and I need to recognize and learn about my own biases, my own implicit biases. And at times I need to repent. And so a lot of it is, to me, is hopefully modeling what I'm trying to teach other people. A lot of the seminars and workshops that I've been to, they talk about listening, but one of the things that they haven't done, the ones that I've been to, they haven't actually taught people how to listen. They haven't coached people how to listen. And so that's actually something that I hope I might be able to be a part of in the next year or two, is having some of these discussions, these authentic dialogues where people actually learn how to listen to somebody from a different race, a different culture, maybe a whole different belief system, and try to understand.
It's so fascinating you say this, because I went to Easter service last weekend with my brother and his family, and they go to, well, at least that particular service we went to, it's predominantly white church. Their family is a mixed family in that my brother's Black, and then his wife is white, and then their children are biracial. And there was not a lot of, at least from what I could tell, a pretty good sized church, and a lot of people there. And there was a moment in time where I literally sat and I thought, well, first of all, it's Christian, right? It's Baptist church, Christian faith. And I thought, wow, if that couple over there had been born in India, for example, they wouldn't be Christian. They'd be going to a puja of some sort, or celebrating Diwali or something like that. And if that child over there had been born in, other place, he might be doing communion, right? So it was so fascinating to just think about how, I don't want to diminish the spiritual or religious practices, but it is actually quite arbitrary in the sense that based on your geography, where you were born and what time of your life you were born in that place, whatever the predominant religion is what you tend to inherit, right? Unless your family belongs to a specific group. But it was just quite fascinating to think about, like, there's other people, maybe, in a few weeks, Ramadan is taking place, and there's going to be other people congregating for another reason. And I just had that kind of a global moment. And you're right, that is one of the most segregated times, is when people attend whatever services they attend. And I was like, why does it have to be that way? And does it have to be so divisive? That's the other piece, because there are moments of the divisiveness is what hurts people.
Yes.
Go worship, do whatever you want, however you want it. But then it's you should do it this way. We need to change this. Right. That makes it challenging.
You go from judging behaviors or judging even beliefs to judging people.
Yeah.
Not only is my opinion on politics or religion better than yours, I am a better person than you. Either subconsciously, we have that thought, and when we go there, oh man, that's destructive. It's destructive to everybody. It's destructive to the person that holds the views, and it's destructive. It polarizes society.
Huge. Deepa, what's on your mind about this?
You know, it's been a really, I think, post-Trump, I feel like literally how I view the world and people has changed. And that's been a dramatic shift for me. And there's a lot of sadness actually that comes with it because I've lost friends,
Right.
you know, because we don't share the same values. And that was shocking to me. That was like a big revelation that people that I thought within the, you know, church community that I thought shared the same values, they just didn't, you know, when it came to race and LGBTQI community, and when it came to people of color, and some of them are people of color. So for me, a few years was a lot of anger, like David talked about, you know, judgment and anger. There was a lot of that. There's a lot of like questioning, like, how are we on the same page with all of these people? And I don't want to get into conflict with anybody. As much as I love to resolve people's conflict, I think part of it is that we are conflict avoidance to some certain extent, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God. But I got into it with a couple of people because our views were so like different. And it was shocking to me. I'm like, these are people who value family, who I thought had the same values, that how would they like this person who did so much damage to this country, right? Or how can they even talk about moral values? But anyway, that's like a rabbit hole I can go into. But after that post, that there was a lot of sadness. Like I lost good friends
Mm.
because I just don't have that respect for them anymore. And there's not anger right now because I feel like we're you know sort of pivoting and hopefully moving towards something better. But I lost good friends that I thought were like family. You know.
That's fascinating to me. I think that the challenge or the part that makes it so difficult, Deepa, is there was something that brought you all together as friends, right? First of all, and then B, this idea, and David, you mentioned this, right? That we tend to judge people versus the belief. And I have people in my life who have extreme beliefs that I would never adopt and I don't agree with. And I remember in particular a conversation I had with someone who had very, very outspoken about her beliefs around politics, and they were diametrically opposed to mine. But what was fascinating in that moment, and you're talking about listening, is I started, and it took some effort. Look, I don't mean to sound like I'm coming off like, oh, Valerie's got to figure it out. I mean, I practice a lot of this and I get it wrong a lot of times too. But in this case, this was not a friend. It was not somebody that I was particularly close to, but someone who shared with me, a client that shared with me some of the things that she believed. And I was like, wow, really? Oh, okay. That's really dark. and it's quite heavy. Do you have someone in your life that you're talking to about this? I said, I know nothing about what you're talking about. I don't subscribe to any of it. So I'm not going to counter it, or it's not my place to, but do you have someone in your life that you're able to apply this to? And she'd share that she couldn't even talk to her kids about it because they didn't agree. And there's all this stuff. And when I got in the moment, it was like, wow, that must be really lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And however we get to who we are and what beliefs we take on, there's got to be a time where if we want to build a bridge of some sort, or want to maintain those friendships, where the priority has to be an understanding, like how did the person come to be where they are, as opposed to the belief or the, like how to prove that they're wrong doesn't seem to be a winning formula, right? But understanding why they got to that place. David, what? Yeah.
It was an article I read a few weeks back that behind every belief is a story, and behind every story is a person.
Yeah.
As you know, I think it's great to try to have collaborative discussions and to try to see where are we on the same page? Where can we get to the same page? But there can be sometimes where we have irreconcilable ideas, philosophies, or beliefs.
Yep.
So what do we do then? Well, to me, caring about the person is huge. And if I can get to the story behind the belief and the person behind the story, then I can, oh, that's how you came to believe that.
Yeah.
Okay, then I can identify part of that. And if I can identify with part of that, then I can sympathize, and I might even be able to empathize with you. Now, we still disagree, but you know what? I care for you as a person. I don't hate you. In fact, I like you, and we still disagree.
Yeah.
Well, if we can get there, that is monumental progress
Right.
for our nation. I mean, I don't think our governmental leaders at either the national level or the state level or the local level are doing a very good job of being role models for how to have civil and constructive conversations, debates about the issues of our day. But a lot of times we're not doing it. So anyway, trying to get to understand the person behind the belief so that they're not just a category, or they're not just a progressive or a conservative or a this or a that, but they're this person that has a name and a history.
Instead of sticking a label on them.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of, I would subscribe to that, David, but I think, you know, I have seen something slightly different in the sense that it takes two to come to that point, to like both parties have to want to be there. And some of the people that I've seen who've subscribed to some other notion of what they think reality is they're just not even there. They're just like, no, I'm right. This is what I think is going on. You're a liberal, you're like too far left, and you're too far this. I actually consider myself a moderate more than a too far left liberal. Like, I would be okay if a Republican is doing a damn good, fine job of taking care of everybody. Like, I don't freaking care, right? Like, do a good job for all people in your community and in a country, right? So for me, it was more along the lines of, there's just no meeting of values at all. So I don't wish them any harm. I wish them well, but I just can't be part of their lives, and I don't want them to be part of my life.
Yeah.
Well, I think there is a level of a toxicity when people are so toxic that they cannot have that perspective of mutual respect despite differences. Sometimes I think you do have to cut.
You just have to let it go, right? You just have to let it go.
So is it that people are toxic or people are intoxicated? No, I'm not. I just had this moment when you said that, because I think
this is water. This is all.
It is water. Water for me too. Everybody, cheers. Take a sip before I'm gonna say something deep. So,
all right. So tell me about intoxicated people.
Deepa. Yeah. So the idea is that, you know, we can put a label on the vehemence that comes out when people disagree about something, and we can label that toxic, right? Because we don't care for it, we don't want it. It's hurtful or maddening or whatever. But I say intoxicated because, to your point, if there's a belief, behind every belief there's a story, and behind the story there's a person, then the intoxication took place wherever the story starts. Like, there was something that I heard, something that I experienced, something that happened that had me, you know, programmed to react a certain way, or right, there was something. And the intoxication is basically, this is the outcome. I'm not sure if I'm going to articulate this perfectly, but the outcome of whatever I decided once that situation occurred. I made a choice, right? Small example, and sometimes it can be an empowering choice and sometimes a disempowering one. But I remember when I was like maybe 6 or 7 years old, and we were leaving my grandparents' house, and they lived in an apartment complex, and this is in Panama. And my parents and my brothers and I had to cross this main street, like 4-lane street, to get the bus. And the bus was coming in the opposite direction. So the bus is coming. My 2 younger brothers are very young, so my parents are carrying them. My older brother and I were walking ourselves across the street. You know, this was Sunday evening. I'm wearing my little Sunday dress, whatever. And the bus is coming, so we have to rush across the street. I slip and I fall in the middle of the street. Cars are coming. I'm freaking out. And, you know, I think it was my parents, somebody turned around and said, Valerie, get up, come on, the bus is coming. And I was like, I almost died. I'm like, hello, help. And they didn't turn around to come and get me. I literally had to just pick myself up and go across the street. Now, that moment was seared into my psyche, because I decided at that moment that I got to take care of myself. The world isn't safe and no one cares. Right. And that couldn't be further from the truth. all of them cared. They were focused on getting the bus, making sure they were carrying the younger brothers, whatever. But what that ended up marking for me was a life of being as an independent and as self-assertive and controlling and, performative, like you name it. It just programmed me to be this version of Valerie. And now there are times where it's worked really well, super effective, right? Which intoxicating, right? That moment was very intoxicating because it marked a big path for me. But now I also see, oh, it also works against me because it doesn't always include collaboration and partnership. And right, there's some give and take that goes missing, or that has to be now put in intentionally because my nature is to just, oh, I'll take care of it.
Mhm.
And so it's been fascinating to discover how that shows up. So anyway, the whole point here is that story marks a moment, and whatever that moment, whatever we chose in that moment, I would imagine tends to move us in one direction or another. And that's why the intoxication comes. It's maybe not about the other person as much as this is a choice I made and I'm programmed now, right?
Mhm.
I've now been imbibing this, and the tolerance that I have for living this way is very high because this is what I've created. Does that resonate? I don't know. What do you guys hear in what I said?
I heard trauma. Trauma. Yeah.
Yeah, for 7 years, that's huge.
Right. And it stayed in because it was never processed, or it was just a fleeting moment in your life. Like, technically, from your parents' perspective in that age, nothing really happened to you. You weren't harmed, right?
No, I wasn't. Yeah.
There was internalized trauma in that moment that we carry it with ourselves. So to your point, maybe a lot of these people's stories start with some kind of a trauma, right? Or something in their childhood that made them in a certain way. But the thing is, you would want to, one person, even if I speak for myself, I'd want to sort of change, look at myself and get better or seek help. So a lot of people that I'm talking about in terms of just have these specific beliefs, and these are just personal relationships. My clients are amazing, by the way, because they're here, they're coming to me because they're looking for help and they're wanting to.
They want to change, yeah.
They want to change, right? But these are friendships I'm talking about, and very few, but I don't know if they want to look at themselves. The only way you can change is if you look at yourself and see where all of this is coming from.
Yeah,
you.
That's true.
Right? That's the only way you can say, oh yeah, maybe this is not this situation, or this is not these other people's perception of other views, or this is not about my view, but this is about what I've gone through and what I'm bringing with me for the rest of my life because I've not resolved it.
Mm-hmm.
It's too scary and painful to resolve these traumas.
It can be, yeah. I mean, in my case, it was subconscious. I don't think it was anything that was so egregious. And plus it's quite an empowering context to have around any kind of trauma, right? It's not like I was victimized in some way by that experience. And the idea is that we notice when it bumps up against, okay, now this is not moving life forward, is now no longer empowering me, right? But I think that's where we now have an opportunity, and having conversations with like people like you and the expertise that you have would support people in moving past it. But in friendships and relationships where people just want to be who they are and just want to be able to share themselves openly and have somebody still be able to hear and see them, I mean, it's got to be rough. It's got to be rough. So you want to surround yourself with people who would be like, yeah, there's nothing worse. I'm gonna go back to the intoxication because I think I'm gonna write a book about this because I think there's something rich here. I don't know, something rich. So, but think about it. I don't drink. I really don't. I mean, I have had some, but I don't like being around drunk people. Mm-hmm. It's annoying. I don't get into it. But they're like, but if you drank, you'd be fine, right? Because you'd match the level of energy or whatever's happening in the moment. And so I think it's the same thing when you're dealing with something. And you're at that space and I don't share that value, or you're intoxicated and I'm not, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be fun. Somebody there's going to be miserable, likely both. Mm-hmm. Because you're not getting me, I'm not getting you. And it's like, we don't belong here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. David, you look, you're going to say something profound.
The thing that, that Deepa was talking about, when if we can try to give people the benefit of the doubt, because one of the things I think we have to worry about is our hearts getting hardened.
Yeah.
Either out of bitterness or resentment or whatever, out of fear from people that are so different than me, that have beliefs that I might find just horrific. I still have to guard against my heart getting hardened against those people. And if I can think there might legitimately be some kind of genuine traumatic experience, I can get to a place of sympathy. I still can despise the ideas. I can still reject the philosophy or whatever, but hopefully I can say, I can still care for this person at some level. I still may need to separate from them depending on the proximity or lack thereof. But just the whole them versus us in America, and Fox versus CNN, and it's just, it really is
draining.
Yeah, and I think that phenomenon really is toxic, because it just breeds the worst in us. And that, I don't know, I think that's probably where our society, I don't think our society's, in terms of innately, is the people are worse than the people 50 years ago or 100 years ago. But I think some of these influences are bringing out some of our worst qualities.
Yeah.
I would imagine. Yeah, I definitely see that.
But, having said all of this, if these friends just call and say that they need help or something, I would do it. It's a non-issue, right? So there's that level of, this is another human being. This is not about beliefs and values at this point. This is about what is it that I can do to help, because they'll still be, my friends at a certain level, but we're just not going to be that close friendships, right? But if they say, hey, I need something, I'm there. There's no question about that. And I think
everyone, you should call Deepa if you need help. And the more messed up you are, the better.
1-800-Deepa.
DrDeepa.com.
Conflict David, Mr. Conflict David.
Whew. Look, I mean, we're just getting started, but our time is coming to an end, sadly, for this level of conversation. I mean, it got so heated in here, I had to bring out my fan. Woo! Woo! Oh my gosh, and I totally forgot about the object. You guys right in. I'm so glad you did that, Deepa. So, David, you had a song.
Sing for us, yes.
This is perfect. Thank you for bringing us back around. So, David, you brought a song to Just Call on Me, which I now think is going to be Deepa's theme song, because that's what she's asking all her.
You've got a friend.
You've got a friend. Yes. So tell us, why is that song so important to you?
Well, I think the question was a song or an object or a quote that reflects our passion for our profession. And there's no real song that is an exact analogy. But when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, as in my teens and early 20s, I wasn't very scientific. I wasn't very mechanical. I was minimally athletic. And so when I heard somebody talk about counselors or psychologists, and I said, so what do they do? And they said, well, people come to them and they talk to the people about their problems, and they try to help them with the stresses of life and try to help them get to a better place. And I go, what? You can make money by talking to people? I thought that's
not much, by the way, but you can.
I thought that's what friends do. Friends talk to each other and they try to help each other. Now, I learned, fairly quickly that yes, at some level, and no at some level. I mean, friends really can help each other by talking. And friends really can help each other deeply by listening. I mean, you can talk people off a ledge. You can prevent suicide by just listening to somebody and caring. And to help them get out of some of their stuck places, yes, you absolutely need more training. But just the aspect of being a friend and helping people was a really key part of why I was attracted to counseling and psychology.
Wow. And I really like that song. And I think at some point maybe we'll We'll have you sing the chorus when we close.
My
And Deepa, show us your collage there. What was it about that collage that you felt you wanted to share with us?
So my work is constantly evolving. Like I usually don't have something that's consistent to what I'm doing in the moment, but this has stayed with me since when I did it, right? So there are a few things that I will read from you guys, and from it, this is like the core of like my beliefs and values. And whenever I feel like I am alone, and I feel that a lot of times in my profession, because in private practice, as much as I have tons of friends and professionals in the same arena, you're doing a lot of work by yourself. And if you're building, excuse me, if you're building like a enterprise or something, it can get lonely, and it can get like, there's a lot of self-doubt in there. Like there's a lot of, am I even like, can I even do this kind of a thing? So that's when I really look at it, because there's a lot of sayings in here that like really motivate me. And there's some funny ones too. I'll read you guys the 3 funny ones. They're short. So they're for the 3 most important people in my life. One is, you know, my son, my husband, and my dad. So, so one is for my son: if you've never been hated by your child, you've never been a parent.
I saw that one. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, it grounds me so much. For my dad, the man, the belly, the legend. I'm going to get him a t-shirt that says
Belly.
And for my husband, this is, you know, my husband's wife is freaking awesome. True story.
Your husband's wife is freaking awesome.
Hashtag true story.
True story. Love it. What's your husband's name, Deepa?
Vasu.
Vasu?
Yeah.
All right. So Vasu, I'll invite Vasu and Cindy next.
There we go. And then we'll get
We need the
rest
counter.
of the story.
Oh my God.
The rest of-
I would have to like run off somewhere and hide.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Well, I want to ask you now about this experience, the experience of being on this podcast and meeting each other for the first time. And I mean, we got into some stuff. So I'm curious, what was this like for you? What stood out about it?
Tons of fun. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew it was going to be enjoyable, and it was much more enjoyable than I thought. And it's always a pleasure to get to associate with you, Valerie, and Deepa. What a pleasure and an honor to meet you. And I need to look up the Berkeley Executive Coaching Institute.
You do, yes. And
It's
David,
fascinating.
what did you enjoy the most? You said it was very enjoyable. So what was it that you enjoyed most about this?
Oh, the laughter and the back and forth and the silliness and the mix of silliness and gravitas.
Yeah.
That's quite a combination.
Yeah, silliness and gravitas. I think I should have a t-shirt with that.
I know. That'll be the name of my podcast.
Valerie equals silliness and gravitas.
Yeah, Dr. Silliness and Gravitas.com.
There we go.
Thanks. And Deepa, what about for you? What was this like?
You know, the minute I met David, of course I know you, Valerie. I was just cracking up. Like we met like 10, 15 minutes before, and I was just laughing so much, my cheeks were already hurting. And I was like, oh my God, this is just going to be such a fabulous and hilarious conversation. And the best part was it was a great balance of, we got into some deep stuff. We talked about our work and we laughed and there was humor. It was perfect. And, you know, and I think circling back, it just comes back to how you bring people together.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of trust for people who come on your show, and you bring the right people together and we connect and we have a great conversation, and hopefully your audience enjoys these conversations.
Oh, I hope so too. I get so much joy from it. I don't get paid for this, although I said I should, and I think you guys should pay me. So no, but it's something that is really it's a passion project for me. I love meeting new people. I love learning and hearing stories. And it's funny, my mom and I had this long conversation the other day because I told her, I like talking to just like regular people. And I appreciate shows like Ellen or, Oprah Winfrey. They bring some pretty heavy hitters, although, Oprah in her time, and Ellen in her time brings some regular folk, but usually regular folk who've done something extraordinary. Right. And I was like, no, I don't want, don't be offended. But I don't want
I
extraordinary
haven't done
people.
anything extraordinary. Deepa?
What? This is so news to me, Valerie. This is what you thought about us. This is kind of like
No, but
we are totally
we're regular
extraordinary,
guys.
okay? We're totally extraordinary.
Extraordinary people doing not ordinary things. Yes?
Get your foot out of your mouth.
Exactly. Are you Sagittarian? Like, what's going on?
Well, I'm an Aquarius, and so that's an air sign, and we think differently. That's all. So, but no, it was interesting because I get so much from seeing people connect in interesting ways. People that I know the two of you, but not like super well. We don't like hang out, and we haven't been involved in each other's lives beyond. We should, and we can definitely do that. But I so appreciate the amount of generosity the two of you shared today, just in the humor, in sharing something personal about your own struggles or your own biases, right? The things that you now have learned, the tools that you can now give to other people. That's my favorite, when I see there's a level of collaboration in the spirit of the show. So we won't get into it now, but I'm curious, what would you like to talk about if you were to meet again? What questions did you wish I asked or gone down into a little bit more detail?
From my side, I don't deal with a lot of executives or businesses. I've had some training in courses that work with businesses, but I haven't had a lot of personal experience. Like, I've studied Crucial Conversations and Crucial Confrontations and other programs for businesses, but I haven't had a lot of experience. So I would talk to Deepa more about what are the kinds of issues that she sees in dealing with executives or businesses conflicts, and how are those similar or different from what happens in the counseling office when she's dealing with husbands and wives and just people like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And Deepa, what about for you? What question do you wish we talked about, or perhaps things that you would follow up with Dr. Conflict about?
Dr. Conflict. I think one of the things I really would want to know from him a lot more about is his experience with working with different couples with premarital counseling. Like that, I feel like is such a tremendous service that we can offer as mental health professionals to people on our website and say, hey, if you're doing this, then come and talk to us before you kind of get into this kind of scenario. I would want to know more tools and techniques. You shared with us one, and more along those lines, and see what are other creative ways that you help people. Like, because we all have a whole bunch of tools across to us, but there's like certain tools that we use, and I'm always curious as to what other mental health professionals are using in their profession and what will work. So that's what I'd want to know. And I think there's going to be a lot more laughter and silliness too in that.
I don't know how you guys do it, dealing with the things that you have to. It sounds like, there's some pretty heavy moments in your practices, right? You're dealing with people at their most vulnerable, at their most hurt, at their most upset, angry, fearful, all of that. And the two of you lifting it up. Actually, my dad shared this game they used to play in the military. So it's called push ball. This is humongous ball. It was like the size of maybe like two people. It's huge. And they would split up into teams, and one team would try to push the ball down to one goal, and then the opposite team would push the ball back to the other goal. And the whole idea was see who can get the most times down the field. Well, he said, people would push one way or push the other, but the ball wouldn't always move very much, just like little fractions. But sometimes the team would lift the ball up in the air, and that would give it even more leverage to push it further down the field. And I think the thing that the two of you shared and what you learned, you're also skilled at lifting the ball up, right? You lift the spirit, lift the energy in the space so that the learning can happen, so that you can leverage the mood, or you leverage the energy to move the ball down even further, to get through the conflict in a more graceful way, to heal the relationship or separate in a way that's empowering to the people you're working with. So I'm so grateful that I have the two of you in my life. Thank you so much for being such fun-loving, caring, professional, gifted individuals.
My pleasure.
I would say extraordinary.
Yes, I think so.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was
We
awesome.
all are.
Oh my gosh. And I will definitely put your websites or phone numbers or whatever you think is appropriate for those who've been listening to, get connected with you and perhaps, get some of that, that magic conflict resolution dust sprinkled on them. Like Salt Bay. Anyhow. Thank you guys so much for being here. And those of you who tuned into this episode of Not Quite Strangers, thank you all so much for being a part of this community. So, if you're not subscribed currently, make sure you do so. Go to notquitestrangers.com, and there you can subscribe to get all of the episodes, including this one, directly in your inbox. And if you have YouTube and you prefer to subscribe to our YouTube channel there on Connect to Joy, you'll also be able to get a notification anytime a new video is posted. We're on all the podcast platforms as well if you're more of the auditory type. So looking forward to having more guests with more meaningful, more interesting conversations. I think you guys hit all the bells. Definitely brought connection, you inspired curiosity, and we challenged the status quo. There's something about intoxication. I'm gonna have to unpack that a little bit more. I know. There's something big there. There's something big. I feel it.
We can't wait to see it.
Can't wait. I can't either. In any case, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of the day, everyone.
You've been listening to the podcast Not Quite Strangers. Be sure to subscribe or follow on your favorite video or podcast platform. And for more information and content, go to notquitestrangers.com. See you next time.